Perhaps you'll remember that time when Mullah Nasruddin was invited to be a magistrate, a judge in his hometown. And one day, when he was holding court, a traveller came dashing in and said, "Justice, I demand justice. I've just been robbed outside of town, and look at me, they stole my horse, he took my turban, he took my cloak, he took my shoes and my pants." The mullah looked at him and said, "But I can see you're still wearing your underpants." And the man said, "Yes." Well, the mullah said, "Well, I'm very sorry, but I can't help you with your case, because it's obvious that the robber does not come from our town, because we do things properly here." Well, it's the fifth Sunday, and it's a good opportunity to make a completion before we commence on a new phase or a new link in that never-ending chain that's been going on for so many years for us. So it's an opportunity to test your understanding with several stories. One might be familiar to you because it's that story of the brother and sister who lived in the high mountains of Tibet. And the sister was a very pious being. She'd spent many years in the presence of a very high and revered Lama. But the brother was a bit of a ne'er-do-well. He loved going out into the steeps, riding the wild horses and carousing with his friends. And his sister would entreat him to change his ways and invited him to go and spend time with her Lama. And there was an occasion when he decided to do so, becoming tired of the wild life that he was leading. So he went and he spent time with the Lama, and when he came back, of course, his sister asked him, "Well, how was it? What happened for you?" And the brother said, "Well, when I arrived, the Lama was in deep meditation, so I sat in front of him and I closed my eyes. But when I opened my eyes, the Lama was gazing at me, and I couldn't help myself. I had to ask him, 'Honorable Lama, what is it that you're seeing?' And he replied to me, 'Well, my son, I'm seeing the Buddha.' And then the Lama asked me, 'Well, my son, what is it that you're seeing?' And I didn't dare answer him because what I was seeing was a pile of shit. And his sister said, 'You foolish man, don't you realize that what you were seeing was your own reflection? Go back and spend time with this Lama and begin to polish your mirror.'" And then the second story is a story in a time when Buddhism was rife, spreading rapidly through all the lands of Asia. And there was a monastery, somewhat remote, that was headed by a wise and sagacious abbess, nun. She was sought after by many, many people who came for her counsel, to partake of her wisdom and her knowledge. But there were also many who came who wanted to join the order of Buddhism, which she headed. When these people came, they were questioned deeply. And when she found that they were sufficiently avid and sincere in their seeking, she led them to a remote area of the monastery garden, where she pointed to an opening that was hardly even visible, covered as it was by bushes and branches. And she would say to them, "Follow this walkway and you will find the path. Now there were many who made their way down that walkway, and at a certain point, when there was a turning in the path, they were confronted with a mirror. Now many of them tried to find their way around the mirror, but every which way they turned, they found that the mirror was there. Many of them who stood in front of the mirror thought to themselves, "Oh, this must indicate that the path is inward." But that was too daunting for them, and they left. There were those who fell in love with their image, became seduced by what they saw in the mirror, and they stood for a long, long time. There were those who looked in the mirror and saw strange faces and strange visions, and they became mad. There were those who became angry and threw stones at the mirror, but the stones only ricocheted back and hit them. There were some who tried to find their way past the mirror, but all they did was get stuck in brambles and got scratched and injured. And then there were those, but a few, who stood in front of the mirror and remembered that the abbess had said, "Go to the end of the walkway and you will find the path." And as they gazed into the mirror, they had the revelation, "Oh, this is a reflection, but it is not who I am." And if they dared and touched the mirror, it melted, opened like a vast doorway. And when it did, they entered a place unknown to them, a garden of great beauty, and there, awaiting them, was the abbess with 2 spades. Now, to test your understanding, the question is, what, from your experience, is the interpretation of this story? And what is the significance of the abbess holding the 2 spades?
For me, that would represent that you need to go into the abyss and dig deeper.
All right. Simply put and very well put.